Imagine a place where the American dream meets a desolate, sun-scorched landscape. The Rio Grande Valley in Texas, a land of citrus groves and border towns, where hospitality is a way of life. Now, imagine a phantom haunting this landscape, a predator who moved through the back roads and small towns like a whisper, preying on the vulnerable and leaving behind a trail of missing persons posters, mutilated bodies, and a chilling silence. He was never caught. He was never named. He is known only as the Rio Grande Valley Killer. This isn't a campfire story. This is the terrifying true account of a string of unsolved murders that baffled law enforcement, terrorized a generation, and remains one of America's most disturbing cold case mysteries. Prepare yourself, because we are about to journey into the darkness that swallowed South Texas. Our story unfolds across the 1980s and into the early 90s. A time before the internet, before DNA databases, a time of perceived innocence. But in the sprawling, rural expanse of the Rio Grande Valley, that innocence was being systematically dismantled. A horrifying pattern began to emerge. Young women, and sometimes men, would vanish. They were last seen leaving a convenience store, walking home from a friend's house, or getting into a car with a stranger. Their stories would end abruptly, only to be gruesomely resurrected weeks, months, or even years later when their remains were discovered in the desolate corners of the valley irrigation canals, grapefruit orchards, and dense, thorny brush. The state of decomposition often made determining a cause of death impossible, but the signs of sexual assault and brutalization were frequently present. Local law enforcement, underfunded and overwhelmed, found themselves chasing a ghost. The true terror of these crimes lay in their chilling randomness. The victims had no obvious connection to one another. They were high school students, waitresses, young mothers. Their only shared traits were their geography and their vulnerability. The killer was an apex predator of opportunity, a chameleon who could blend into the fabric of the community, striking when the moment was right. A creeping dread began to poison the region. Women became afraid to walk alone. The trust that holds small towns together began to fray. Who was this monster? A local resident hiding in plain sight, a transient worker, a long-haul trucker passing through. The not knowing was a form of torture in itself. One of the most emblematic cases that helped connect the dots was that of Kimberly Vey, college student who went missing in 1986. Her car was found abandoned, but of Kimberly there was no trace. Months later, her body was found in a field. The sheer brutality of the crime, coupled with the complete lack of forensic leads, left investigators at a dead end. But when Kimberly's case was viewed alongside dozens of other unsolved disappearances and homicides in the same area, a horrifying picture began to take shape. Law enforcement started to suspect they weren't dealing with isolated tragedies, but with the hunting grounds of one or more prolific serial killers. The investigation was a logistical and forensic nightmare. In an era before widespread DNA testing, linking the cases was a monumental challenge. The vast, rural landscape and the jurisdictional boundaries between different county sheriff's departments and city police forces created communication gaps. Physical evidence was scarce. The killer was a master of his craft, leaving behind no fingerprints, no witnesses, no clues. He knew the terrain intimately, the back roads, the isolated dumping grounds where a body could lie undiscovered, reclaimed by the harsh Texas environment. Over time, several theories emerged to explain the reign of terror. One of the most prominent was the Highway 281 killer theory. U.S. Route 281 is a major artery that bisects the Rio Grande Valley, stretching from the Mexican border all the way to Canada. This theory posits that the killer could have been a truck driver or an itinerant worker, using the highway as his personal hunting corridor. This would allow him to strike in one town and be hundreds of miles away by the next day, making him virtually untraceable and explaining the wide geographic spread of the victims. Another, more sinister theory delves into the possibility of a satanic cult or a group of killers working in tandem. This idea was fueled by the ritualistic nature of some of the mutilations found on the victims. The world was shocked in 1989 by the case of Mark Kilroy, an American student who vanished during spring break in Matamoros, Mexico, just across the border. He was found to be a victim of a cult led by Adolfo Constanzo, which practiced human sacrifice. While Constanzo's cult was brought down, the sheer brutality of their crimes raised a terrifying question. Could similar, smaller groups be operating on the Texas side of the border, responsible for some of the Rio Grande Valley's unsolved horrors? Law enforcement investigated numerous suspects over the years, but never gathered enough evidence for a conviction. One of the most infamous was a man already on death row for an unrelated murder, who taunted investigators by claiming responsibility for other crimes in the valley. He played games, offering vague confessions that could never be corroborated. Was he the killer, a pathological liar, or a monster trying to claim another's gruesome legacy? The truth remains elusive. As the 1990s progressed, the frequency of the crimes seemed to wane. The phantom of the Rio Grande Valley appeared to have vanished as mysteriously as he had arrived. Did he die? Was he imprisoned for another crime? Or did he simply move on, taking his darkness to a new hunting ground? The questions hang in the air, unanswered. For the families of the victims, the lack of closure is a wound that never heals. The absence of justice has left a deep scar on the community, a lingering shadow of fear and mistrust. The case of the Rio Grande Valley Killer is a chilling reminder of human vulnerability and the limitations of justice in a pre-DNA era. It's the story of a predator who exploited the vastness of a landscape and the trust of a community to commit unspeakable acts. He has become a dark legend, a real-life boogeyman whose crimes went unpunished. His identity is lost to the mists of time, buried with the secrets of his victims. But the legacy of his terror lives on, a silent echo on the lonely highways of South Texas, an unanswered question that haunts all who know the story. Who was he, and where is he now? What is your theory on the Rio Grande Valley Killer? A lone trucker, a cult, or something else entirely? Leave your opinion in the comments, as this is a mystery that needs to be discussed. And if you are fascinated by unsolved true crime cases and the darkest mysteries in history, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, because there are many other ghosts of the past waiting to have their stories told.